Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 745B. And today's date is August 19th, 2015. And the title of this episode is Pentagon's New Law of War Manual Justifies War Crimes and Censorship. Let's get right into the economic collapse geopolitical news. Now, Russia has decided to give visa-free travel to the BRICS nations. They already have this with China. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to bring in tourism from all the other countries into Russia, because they're trying to boost the tourist industry in this country. And it'll make it easier for other countries to come right in. And they have been doing this with China all along. Now Russia has decided to extend this to all BRICS nations. Now, the United States government central bankers, they're continually out there and they're crying about how each and every one of the other countries out there basically don't allow their people to be free, don't allow their people to have civil liberties, they don't allow their people to have human freedom. And what's very interesting about this is that the civil liberty situation in the United States has worsened due to the erosion of economic freedom, civil rights, and other measures of personal liberty. And this is according to a new comprehensive study. The United States fell from 17th in 2008 to 20th now. So the United States right now is in the 20th place as of 2012. This is the most recent year for this data. And this is coming from the Cato Institute in the US, the Fraser Institute in Canada, and the Swiss Institute in Switzerland. They conducted the study together. And the US performance is worrisome and shows that the United States can no longer claim to be the leading bastion of liberty in the world. How in the world is the United States government allowing this to happen? Well, we know how. They're trying to get rid of the rights of the people. Plain and simple. They enact more and more laws. They don't abide by the Bill of Rights, the Constitution. And this is why it is slipping. More regulations, more laws, more control of the people. So right now, the United States is not the most free country. It's not the country that allows civil liberties. There are other countries that are above the United States. And this should be worrisome. We should be looking at this saying, why is this happening? Why aren't we as free as we used to be? And we know they're trying to censor certain people, censor people on the internet. We know DHS has a kill switch to shut down phones if something happens, something they don't want reported. We know the U.S. is spying on their people, blackmailing judges, government employees, tracking certain people. I mean, think about what they're doing. They're violating all of our rights. They're doing things that we don't want them to do, but they're doing it anyhow. In the name of protecting you, me, and everyone else. But really, do we need their protection? Protection from what? We all understand at this point in time that they're the ones who are creating the problems. So we don't need protecting from a government that's creating the problems. What we need is the government to stop doing and stop violating our rights. Now, everyone can do this on their own. You can use search pages like Start Page. It will allow you to do anonymous searches. You can use Good Gopher. That's another good search engine. You can encrypt your communications. You can use email systems that use encryption so the government cannot read what you're writing. You can use devices like blockatpocket.com. It's a sleeve. It's interwoven with metal, silver, copper. You can slide your driver's license into that, your credit cards, because most of these will have the RFID chip in there, which will allow the government to track where you are and where you're going, or corporations to track you in that matter. We know the Real ID is being pushed on all the states. All of them have to come into compliance with DHS, and all your data will be then transferred to a central database. Block-a-Pocket allows you to have this sleeve. You can slip your phone in there, you can slip your credit card, your driver's license, and it will block the signal. We all need to start doing things and saying, you know something, this is how I'm fighting back. I don't want you spying on me at this point. Now, out in Ukraine, we see the situation there is getting worse. And I have on the X22Report.com site a video from LiveLeak where it shows the actual bombing of Donetsk. Just go to Sentinel Alerts, today's Sentinel Alerts, and you will see it there. And we can see that the OSCE is continually being intimidated not to report these things, but shelling is continuing in Ukraine. We are getting reports right now that Ukraine has deployed heavy weapons, large number of troops right to the front line. And the count right now is between 50 and 60,000 soldiers. 68 and 70 battalions comprised of 26 battalion groups plus separate company units, 400 tanks, 2,400 armored vehicles, 132 Grad multiple launch rocket systems, 800 guns and mortars. Basically, this is what happened back in the autumn of 2014. The buildup was there, and then all of a sudden, there was war. We're seeing the same thing happen again. NATO is out there warning Russia on Wednesday that any attempt by Russian-backed separatists, those are the southeastern people, that they will not be allowed to take more territory and it will be unacceptable. Well, they're not taking any more territory. They want the territory they have. They want to be independent. If they really wanted territory, during the last offensive from Kiev, where they were losing, the southeastern people could have marched right into Mariupol, pushed the troops all the way back into Kiev, and taken all that land if they really wanted to. Because Kiev was on the run. They were losing. So if they really wanted territory, that's what they would have done. So right now, NATO, the U.S., they're moving all their heavy military all over the Baltic states. The Baltic countries, I should say, in the region. We're seeing 2,500 U.S. Army troops have arrived in the region. 50 military vehicles are in this region. And they just so happen they're going to start the largest airborne force drill in Europe. The multinational maneuvers dubbed Swift Response 2015 involved 4,800 servicemen from Bulgaria, United Kingdom, Germany, Greece, Spain, Italy, Netherlands, Poland, Portugal, United States, and France. The exercise will last through September. Great cover for a major offensive for Kiev. They can make something up, saying they're being threatened, and go right off into a major offensive. Because during this time period, during these drills, they can say, they were trying to do something. And this is why they reacted. So we're going to have to watch that situation very, very carefully. Now, as the U.S. and NATO are moving military assets and soldiers all around Europe, Russia is becoming concerned. And they're saying, this is provocative. You're moving all these things, pointing the weapons at us. Why is this? But U.S. and NATO are out saying, no. Us moving heavy weapons from the United States to Eastern Europe and the Baltics is not a provocative move, nor is it meant to provoke Russia in any way. We're just doing this because it's important. It's a good thing to do. No, what they're doing is they're provoking Russia. They want Russia to do something, to start the war. Russia right now is planning to deliver the S-300 missile system to Iran. U.S. is objecting to this, saying this is very dangerous. It came out and they said, this is a very capable weapon system that can bring down U.S. or Israeli jet aircrafts. Well, yeah, it's a defensive weapon. Remember what the U.S. always says about Ukraine and all the other countries they've taken over? They have a right to defend themselves. We're only giving them defensive weapons. Well, isn't this the same thing in Iran? Don't they have the right to defend themselves? This is a defensive weapon. So they're actually contradicting what they say. Well, of course, as we know, the U.S. government central bankers, they only say this when they have the puppet government in place. When it's not their puppet government, they don't like using the same excuse. They say, no, you can't have that. And we see this happen time and time again. Now, out in Djibouti, we see something happening there. We know the United States has a base in Djibouti, Camp Lemonnier, and this base right now is the largest U.S. military base in the entire African continent. And the tiny African state of Djibouti has reportedly ordered the U.S. to vacate its secondary military base in the nation in a bid to turn over the installation to the Chinese military, and its contingent of 10,000 troops, raising major concerns in Washington. So right now, China came in, made a better deal with the government of Djibouti, and they're kicking out the U.S. government and bringing in the Chinese. John Kerry did visit Djibouti last May, trying to work this out, but it was not worked out. The president of Djibouti has been in open talks with China, and they decided that, yeah, China is going to help them rebuild the country. Remember, this is a strategic location. This is an entrance to the Indian Ocean, to the Red Sea, lies at the gateway to the busy Suez Canal waterway, and provides a port to neighboring landlocked Ethiopia. China is going to help Djibouti, namely the completion of a $3 billion railroad project from Ethiopian capital city to Djibouti, is also investing $400 million in modernizing Djibouti's notoriously undersized ports, so China can bring in ships. And this is a huge problem for the United States government central bankers. Remember, wherever China is or Russia is in Africa, that's where the United States is trying to get into, throughout Africa. And we've seen this. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was some type of terrorism occurring in Djibouti and all of a sudden the United States says, hey, we can help you with that. I would not be surprised because we saw it happen in Nigeria, Sudan, and all the other African countries where China and Russia are. Now, warplanes from Saudi-led coalition hit Yemen's Red Sea port on Tuesday, and the officials there said the raids destroyed cranes, warehouses, and the main entry point. And guess what? Aid cannot be brought into the country. So the people in Yemen are going to suffer. Children, families are going to suffer. Now, of course, we know the Saudis are taking their orders from the United States. And what's funny is the United States is blaming Assad for a bombing run that killed 100 people in Damascus area. And here we have Saudi Arabia taking their orders from the United States that just destroyed a port that's going to have people go hungry. And if we look at the statistics that's happening in Yemen, the Saudi bombings have already killed 400 children since March. The death toll, the UN Human Rights Office said Tuesday, there are 1,950 civilians that have been killed in Yemen as of Friday. And we know that the United States and Saudi Arabia started this war. The Houthis came in, kicked out the puppet government, and Saudi Arabia, which was never attacked, decided to bomb Yemen. And they're hitting civilians and civilian targets. So we can see at this point that the United States government central bankers talks out of two sides of their mouths, depending how it will benefit them. All I see is people are getting killed, children are getting killed, and this is completely unacceptable, especially for what they're trying to do. Prop up the central bankers. I don't want to be a part of this, and I'm sure a lot of people, once they learn about this, do not want to be a part of this. We see the newly created Syrian rebels. Their job, of course, was to fight the Islamic State. But the U.S. didn't technically say they couldn't fight Assad either. They told them to go after the Islamic State, but made it very clear, whoever fires at you, you can go and attack them. And it's very easy to pick a fight with the Syrian army. All someone has to do is take one shot. The Syrian army fires back and say, okay, we're fighting now the Syrian army. So they always have a way around these things. Now, we understand at this point in time that we will eventually be going to war. We understand that the United States government central bankers will eventually resort to a false flag event. And we start to see that this is definitely going to happen. Because right now, there's no traction for the authorization for war. We see reports of the lone wolves running around, having hit lists for U.S., British airmen, and they're just about ready to use them. And we know the United States is getting for war because they just updated the U.S. Law of War Manual. And when we look into this, they've basically said, and we mentioned this before, this is Chapter 4, Section 4.24.2, journalists and other media representatives are regarded as civilians. So journalists right now, they can be fired upon. They're no longer safe because basically they don't want journalists reporting certain things. And if they are reporting certain things, they will be taken out. Chapter 6, 6.5.4.4, expanding bullets. The law of war does not prohibit the use of bullets that expand or flatten easily in the human body. Like other weapons, such bullets are only prohibited if they are calculated to cause superfluous injury. The U.S. Armed Forces have used expanding bullets in various counterterrorism and hostage rescue operations, some of which have been conducted in the context of armed conflict. But in 1899, there was a declaration on expanding bullets, which prohibits the use of expanding bullets in armed conflicts, in which all states that are party to the conflict are also party to the 1899 Declaration on Expanding Bullets. The United States is not a party to this, so they will use expanding bullets. In the same section, the use of depleted uranium was justified by an American ambassador statement asserting that everything is fine and we don't see any problems using depleted uranium, which they used in Iraq. But we're getting reports from Iraq that, from the Iraqi government, statistics show that prior to the outbreak of the first Gulf War in 1991, the rate of cancer cases in Iraq was 40 out of 100,000 people. By 1995, it increased 800 out of 100,000 people. And by 2005, it doubled 1,600 out of 100,000 people. And this is continually increasing. So depleted uranium is a problem. People have taken Geiger counters in this area, and there is a huge amount of radiation, and they're not even allowed in those areas. So when we look at this, they've updated the war manual. They have a lot more information in this. And the reason they're doing this is because we are getting ready for war. This economy is collapsing. The U.S. government central bankers, they're getting prepared. They have been preparing since 2008. They're making sure that they have their food. They're making sure that they have their supplies. They're making sure they are ready. They have their bunkers. Everyone needs to do the same thing. Yes, you see gold being suppressed. You see the illusion of their statistical numbers. They tell you everything is fine. Just go about your business. Don't worry about anything else. Well, guess what? You need to worry. You need to be ready. You need to get that food. You need to get that medicine. You need to get what you need to survive, to protect your family. If you've been doing it, continually do it. If you haven't, start now. If you want a head start on this, you can go to lifereliance.com. They bundle your food, bug out bags, seeds, things like that, all in one package. If you've been doing it, or you like to go to one of those warehouse places like Costco, BJ's, and Sam's, buy canned goods, buy rice, buy water. Make sure you have it on hand. I can't say it enough. Look what's happened in other countries already. Places where you think it wouldn't happen, they're starting to happen. And this is going to be like a domino effect, and it will reach the United States. We will see this here. It's inevitable that it will happen. I mean, look at all the evidence from everything that we've been seeing. I mean, they told us everything was fine in 2008. They told us everything was contained. They told us they're not forecasting any type of recession or anything. There's no problems whatsoever. And then with a snap of a finger, people woke up, and what happened? They were in Congress telling them that there's going to be riots on the streets if we don't get this bailout, if we don't help the banks. What do you think is going to happen this time? It's going to be worse, because there are no bailouts. There are only bail-ins, capital controls, the shutdown of banks, supplies run dry. The government can't borrow anymore because the rest of the world says, wait a minute, what just happened here? There's always a point in time where a person, a company, a country just can't borrow the money anymore. And this is when things break down. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.